Hi, and welcome to AHEPA Talk. My name is Effie Hercules, and I am the District Governor of Citrus District 2 for the Daughters of Penelope. For those not aware of the Daughters of Penelope, it's a women's organization founded in 1929 where we promote Hellenism, education, philanthropy, civic responsibility, family, and individual excellence. We are active women in our communities helping others. So to continue to help others, we need to focus on us. And that's why we here today, we have Sula Harris, a licensed mental counselor from McNulty Counseling and Wellness to talk about balance in today's society. Welcome, Sula.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about things that we can do to better ourselves as women. And a lot of people are probably wondering, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to listen to this right now? And it is for our own benefit as women to make us better partners, better mothers, better women in general to the people around us. But the most important thing as women, we are role models for the young people that are in our lives. So the way that we handle stress, we're modeling that behavior for our children and everybody else around us. So this is a discussion where I may say things that you think, oh, wow, does she know something about me because I'm saying something that hits home? I really don't. I start all my discussions and say, I have never read your emails. I don't know who your friends are. I just know the issues that women have. Okay.
Totally.
So the first thing I want to talk about is what is the degree of your stress level. A lot of people have stress, but they say, you know what, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm dealing with it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And as mental health counselors, we look at it as how is it affecting your day-to-day life? Okay. Mm-hmm. How are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are you dealing with people? Because one of the main things, and this is a joke I always use when I speak, is that one time my mother said to me, people wouldn't know that you're a therapist the way that you're yelling at your kids right now. And I was like, Mom, I'm having a bad day. But that's at the core of everything. When we're having a bad day, when something is wrong, we're just not, sometimes we don't deal with it right. And this is what I'm talking about, is that we need to learn how to deal with these things. And one of the things that I also ask people is, how are you interacting with everybody around you? Okay. I gave Dimitri a slide about the 8 things that we look at. Okay. And all of those things are something that if we go through them one by one, which I'm going to do, it tells you about what your balance is in your life. And an exercise I'd like people to start is, if you go through all of these right now, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, all of that, rate yourself from 1 to 5. That's what we do. If you were coming to me as a client, I would say rate yourself from 1 to 5 in each one of those sections and see, like 5 being the best, how you're handling them. And then at the end of my discussion, I'll ask you to rate again, because one of the most important things about growth and mental health is being honest with yourself. And I hate to say, I'm Greek. I grew up in a Greek family. We are always perfect. There's nothing wrong. We don't talk to people about our issues because we want the perception that we have the perfect family.
Right.
And usually the people that try to have that are the ones who are really, really struggling the most.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
It's not until you break down that and say, you know what, I really need to be honest with myself. And it could be, while I'm talking, it may not be about you. It may be about one of your children, whether it's a teenager, an adult child. Maybe they're not doing well. I've had lots of people who've moved back in with their parents, maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your parents. I have caregivers who take care of their elderly parents and they're not doing well with this stuff. So this all can help with all of that kind of stuff. So if you rate yourself from all of those 1 to 5, okay, let's start with the most important one, okay? Because obviously we're part of the Greek Orthodox Church, the spiritual one. And this one, again, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Again, I am Greek, okay? So I know. But how connected are you to the church for real? For real. Are you one of those people that comes right at communion and then leaves? Are you one of those people that is always in the hall and doing a million things, but you're not actually in church? Are you one of those people that just comes Christmas and Easter? How connected are you to church, because every time we go to church, we feel this sense of relief when we leave. We're there, we think about things that are going on in our life. And when I talk about spiritual things, it doesn't have to be church. There's people who say, you know what, I don't like going to church. Okay. But are you praying every day, meditating every day? What are you doing to kind of center yourself and ground yourself to do this? And we suggest that every single day you do something. And moving on to the next area, environmental. Okay. So, and I'm going to hop around. It may not be exactly how it is on the thing. Environmental. Let's talk about what everything in your life that's around you looks like. How's your house? This is going to sound funny to people, but how's your car? A lot of people, you always fall into one bucket. You either have a really clean car or a really messy car. All this clutter, it sounds like sometimes, especially Greek people, are like, oh, you're talking voodoo. I'm not talking voodoo, okay? The cleaner you are around yourself, the more organized you are, the less stress that you have. There's a whole big movement on how clutter can actually be bad for you, okay? The other thing is, again, I'm not trying to talk bad about my own ethnicity, but make your environment a reflection of you and it'll make you happier. Is everything around you in your house what you would want in your house? Or is it, I need to have this, or I need to have that, or I need to have that, this or that decorated in a certain way? I need to do things around myself that are for the benefit of others, but not myself. And that's why I said, be honest. Be honest. Okay. The next one is socially. This is a huge one for people. Social can have anything to do with the church, your ministries, everybody that's around you. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Is it people that are helping your life, that are being supportive to your life? Are you surrounding yourself with some people that are judgmental? Are you surrounding yourself with people that you dread going to an event, like a daughter's event, or, AHEPA, or any of the church events? Or are you surrounding yourself with people which every time you see them, you're happy and you feel good feelings and you can talk to them on the phone and, again, be honest with them and have real, genuine friendships? Or are you surrounding yourself with people that they're looking at you in a way, or they're judging your family, or you can't be honest with them about when you have a problem? Because connections to people has not only been huge in the past, but let's talk about pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, this is the only thing that we had was connections with people. We had to do it either like this, we had to do it on the phone, through text, we had to reach out to people. Who were the people that were there for you during this time? Because there isn't anybody who didn't struggle. People couldn't go see their family members in the nursing homes. They couldn't go to the hospitals. They couldn't go to schools. They couldn't go anywhere. Who is your support group around you? Make sure that it's people that really, really care for you, want not only you to do well. And this is an indicator that I always tell people, especially Greek people and ethnic people in general. I always say, if you have good news about one of your children, let's say it's a teen, are you happy to tell them? Or are you somebody who's going to say, no, I can't tell people now. Let's just wait. Let's wait. Because you're superstitious. That they may ruin it. They may give you mati. They may this, they may that. That's your indicator on how great your support group is. Again, be honest. Okay. The next section is financial. Let's talk about what happens when you either overspend and get in debt, you buy a house that you can't afford, you spend way too much on your kids, or you have your kids that are basically coming back and saying, Mom, I need you to support me, or you have to support your grandchildren, or you have to support your parents, or you have having honest conversations. These are the hardest ones. This is the number one reason people fight when they come in for couples counseling, is the financial. It's really hard to sit down and do a budget. Some people think budget is a 4-letter word, but it's really not. It's really not. the main thing about having a budget is both you and your partner need to have exactly the same say in it. And this is important for especially stay-at-home moms, because as stay-at-home moms, and I have done both, I've worked and I've stayed home. Stay-at-home moms, we feel the stigma that our voice shouldn't be heard, that we don't have the right to say things because we're not the ones who are bringing home the money. But in reality, the honest conversation needs to be had that if we are doing what we're doing at home, that's the reason why our partner can do what they do at work. And I know you've seen all of those things that are on Facebook and all the other things about how much, if you added everything up that a woman did during the day, that she should be paid like $150,000 a year, which is true. It's true. You know, and then also building for the future. Sometimes we, as people in relationships, as Greek people, we sometimes think to ourselves, we're going to live forever. We're not going to plan for the future. Who has retirement? Retirement's just, oh no, we'll be fine, you know? And those are the kinds of things, like, who doesn't lose sleep over a financial issue? Lots of people do. How are we going to send our kids to school? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Having those honest conversations, not only with your partner, but with yourself. Because everything that I tell people to do, it's a lot easier to do the negative thing. It's a lot easier to not save. It's a lot easier to not talk to your partner. A lot of women, when they come to me with this one issue that's financial, they are embarrassed and they think that no one else has this problem. The problem where they have to hide what they buy from their husband, or they say, oh, it was only $10 and really it was $30, and that's a small example of it. But those are the kinds of things where, as a woman, you're moving away from your partner. You're not moving towards your partner. And whenever we do communication, we always want to move towards our partner, not away from our partner. He should not be somebody that you can't trust with things. And as women, we're constantly feeling like we don't have as much say. We can't put our opinion into it and say, you know what, I think we should spend this money, or I think we should do this. Because a lot of people feel like I'm just the woman, especially the way that we were raised.
Right.
The next one is emotional. Okay. Now, emotional means how do you deal with these things? How do you deal with stress? Are you somebody that holds it in? Are you somebody that yells? Are you somebody, negative coping skills are a huge thing. And people say, well, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, so I'm fine. But are you taking it out on people? Are you feeling guilty about yourself? There's so many other things in negative coping skills that you can do. Are you withdrawing yourself? Are you getting anxiety? Some people, it's very funny to me how people don't think they have anxiety. And then when I talk to them and tell them what anxiety is, they say, oh my God, I do have anxiety. Because anxiety is the number one thing that we see people for. Everybody thinks it's depression. It's not, it's anxiety, whether it's social anxiety, phobias, panic attacks. And I always tell people there's two kinds of anxieties. There's a kind that you can see on the outside, like you're sweating and you're shaking and you can't speak very well. Mm-hmm. Then there's what I call the little duck on a pond. Okay. So when you picture a little duck on a pond, you see the duck and the duck is like moving nice along the pond, but what's happening underneath, under the water? The legs are going like this. Okay.
Right.
That is the internal anxiety that we have, where we think like, oh, we look fine. We look fine. Everyone's like, oh my God, I would never know you have anxiety. But inside, we're thinking of worst case scenarios every single time something is happening. And with things like that, there's lots of ways to deal with your anxiety. And this is one trick that I tell people, that the way to deal with your anxiety is to distract your mind from the anxiety. And there has to be something that's going to distract you good enough so where the anxiety is going to go away in that moment. Okay. So one of the things that I always tell people is, I ask them when I'm in a group setting, see if you can name the 7 dwarfs from Snow White. And people always think, oh my God, she's crazy. This woman is like ridiculous. Okay. But statistics have shown that you cannot name all 7 dwarfs. You get to 5, you may get to 6, but you will not remember the last one. And what does that do? You're like, what does that mean? Your brain has to stop thinking about how anxious it is and think about what is the name of that stupid little 7th dwarf that I can't think of.
It's bashful.
Okay. What?
It's bashful. Everybody forgets bashful. Sorry.
You know what? You know what's funny, Effie, is that I was going to actually ask you, because usually I ask somebody, but then I thought she works for Disney. There's no way.
Yeah. I know. It's bashful. Everybody forgets bashful. Sorry. Yes.
So you could do other things like naming the 50 states. Okay.
Yeah.
You can name your favorite teams. You can name like anything that you have to actually stop and remember. With kids, I do name your princesses, name your Star Wars characters, anything like that. You know, I always say don't do reindeer, because reindeer, you know the song for Rudolph, and you'll be like, this woman's crazy. I'm still anxious. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can ground yourself. Okay. Because in the moment we get so much anxiety that we're always wondering, like, how can we, and something that's very easy that people use, whether they're on a plane, in a social setting or anything, is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And people always go, well, what am I going to taste? And I'm like, yeah, you have your mouth. You'll be able to taste something, whether it's your lunch, something. By the time you get through all of these things, your anxiety goes away, and it's very easy to do. The other thing is, how are you modeling how you're handling stress to the people that are close to you? Okay. And let's talk about 2 areas. Let's talk about with kids, and let's talk about with your parents. Okay. Because we have people that are in all different ages. Your kids, if they see you freaking out about something, they're going to react the same way. Especially in the pandemic, one of the things that we really press upon to parents is don't watch the news all the time. Don't completely be obsessed with it, because what you're doing is you are inserting anxiety into their life because they see you so stressed. Okay.
Sula, may I interrupt? I actually just got a message from somebody when you were talking about anxiety. They wanted to know what's the difference between depression and anxiety.
Okay. So depression and anxiety, they go hand in hand. Okay. I want you to think of, I wish I had my picture of it, but I want you to think of anxiety at the top and depression at the bottom. Okay. And people will start to feel anxiety about doing something. Okay. And they fill their head with all of this fear, like, oh my God, I can't do it. 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 There's no way. People are going to laugh at me, blah, blah, blah. What do? They slump themselves into a depression. Okay. They stay there for a while. And then they start to go, you know what? I'm going to try. As they start to try, what happens? It sets in with anxiety, and anxiety goes up. So this is why some people are like, you can't have anxiety and depression at the same time. Yes, you can. Depression, remember what I said at the beginning, it's how it affects your day-to-day life. We all have bad days. But are you to the point where you are pulling away from people and isolating yourself? Are you to the point where you're not getting things done that you need to get done? Are you to the point where you're either lying to people about not going places or just not showing up? Are you to the point where, and depression is an internal anger, okay? So sometimes, especially with men, depression comes out as an anger because we're mad at ourselves for not being able to do these things. And when I'm treating depression, I always say there's a routine that people who go into a depressive episode have, okay? When people go into this routine, they'll go into their room, they'll close the lights, they will go in their bed, they will listen to sad songs, they will turn their phone off, okay? That is depression. Anxiety is more that you're nervous about something. Depression is you want to pull yourself away from the world and you don't want to try, you don't have energy, you sometimes have pains in your stomach, you want to lay in bed all day, and some people have depression and they function because it's moderate depression, but it's like they feel like they have a black cloud over them. So when I try to counsel people when it comes to depression, I always say, okay, all the things that I just mentioned, going in your room, doing this, doing that, let's try and remove one of those things and add something positive. Okay. Like, who can you talk to? Who can you reach out to when you're starting to feel depressed?
Okay.
And that's more difficult to treat. Anxiety is very difficult to treat, but we can work with it. With depression, it's very hard to get somebody motivated to get out of that depression. But we do our best with everything, because what we're doing is removing the negative stuff that you're doing and trying to slowly give you meaning. And I've done things where I'm like, okay, I don't care if you're 50 years old. What is something that you have always wanted to do in your life? Let's do it. Let's break it down. Because part of that, remember the wheel that I did of anxiety and depression?
Yeah.
Part of it is when you're trying to get out of depression, you think of all the reasons why you can't do it. And you say to yourself, I'm never going to be able to do it. And I say, okay, if you want to go back to school, let's break it down. Let's find the schools you're interested in. Let's send an email. Let's do this. You want a new job? Okay. Go on Indeed and just look at jobs and come back and tell me what you find. Because sometimes the reason people have a difficult time getting out of depression is because they're like, oh my God, I have to do everything at once and there's no way I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That works in so many different areas, though, like the things that you mentioned. So, for instance, the home, trying to do a home environment that's messy, trying to do one step at a time, take just the top of the desk, and then you work your way down from the desk, and then work from room to room instead of, when they have it on hoarders. It's not a mass. It's just deal with one little thing. And I think that's what people forget, is they need to focus on one little thing by what you're saying. If they start small and then work your way big, then it's not as big as it seems. Okay.
Exactly. Because one of the things that I talk about with people is that you need to not, especially with couples, you don't wait for the date night once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because what happens? Life happens.
Yeah.
So if you are not doing something every single day for yourself, okay, or for your partner, if it's a couple, you cannot rely on that one night, that 2-hour date to make everything okay, because you know what?
It's not going to work.
Your kids are going to get sick. Your babysitter's not going to be able to show up.
Yep.
You're going to go to a restaurant and you're going to have to wait for an hour and be annoyed. They're going to do something wrong to your food. There's all these things that can happen. So I always tell people, one of the most difficult assignments I give to people is find your joy. And they say, what are you talking about, Solif? What do you mean find your joy? And I say, find the one thing that every day you do for yourself that just is a little bit of joy. Some people it's planting their garden. Some people it's listening to music. Some people just something. It's not a chore like cleaning or exercising. It's something that brings you joy. And I always use this example, and people think I'm joking, and I'm not. My joy that I absolutely love the Golden Girls. Okay. I can watch an episode of the Golden Girls and my life that day will be so much better. I will have my little break to myself.
Yeah. And it can be almost like, and I think of actually a number of people that do exercise and they love to exercise. That's their thing. Yeah. They get the stress out. For me, which maybe down the line someday, exercise might be my joy, but for others, it's great to have one item that could be that little strike. It could be cooking, whatever it is. And I think a number of people might even consider volunteering and making others feel good as they do in the Daughters. That could be it. But no matter what it is, I do absolutely agree with that. Finding that little bit of joy. Right. Because volunteering, this is the thing, is when you're volunteering, you're doing it because giving makes you feel good. Yeah. If you're somebody who's really maxed out with everything and you're volunteering everywhere, it feels more like a chore, then it's time to cut back. Right. That's a signal. Because you shouldn't be annoyed. You shouldn't be, there's some people who
have like go off on somebody because they brought the wrong color napkins for the church thing, or they that person, they need to kind of step back and say, okay, you know what is it that brings me joy when it comes to this? Because it's something that we're all supposed to do for ourselves. Now the next, and that goes into the next area, occupational. And occupational is, when I say that, I don't mean like people say, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom or I'm retired. Okay, so how are you doing with being a stay-at-home mom, and how are you doing with being retired? Are you doing everything that you should do? Occupational can also mean being basically a person on, let's say, one of the daughters' committees, or a co-chair, or being an officer. How are you doing with that? Are you doing everything? Again, be honest. Are you asking for help? Some people don't want help.
Right.
In your career, are you doing the things that you need to do to get to where you need to be? The second part, when I say be honest, the second part is have courage. You need to have courage. And that's something that we are, as humans, it's very difficult, because especially in this day and age with social media, the world sees everything that we do.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It's very hard for us to say, you know what, I am going to go for that new job. I am going to move to this new place. I am going to have this relationship that maybe people are going to look down upon. And that's why I say be honest and have courage, because that's one thing where it's like, you know what, if you want to do it, there shouldn't be anybody who's stopping you. And the takeaway from these things that I'm discussing is that if you don't have the courage to declutter, to find your joy, to be honest about your relationship with God, all these things that I'm saying, all you're doing is building more and more resentment towards yourself.
Yeah.
And you'll have that guilt. And it's funny because in my private practice in St. Pete is a very big Catholic community. I have had women who are in their 80s sitting on my couch who have a companion friend, and they still are dealing with guilt because their parents told them that they should never do that, and the Catholic Church told them that they should never after their husband passes away, and all these things. So it's like, it carries you. All the things people say, it's all voodoo about your childhood. No, you carry everything that you have into your adulthood.
Sure. And
this is how you raise your kids. And so if you're having all of these issues, you're like the little duck on the pond, And the last thing is physical. Okay. And physical, when we talk about that, everybody thinks, I eat right, I take my vitamins, I take my medication, I'm fine. But are you feeling like you're not at your best? Do you feel guilty about you not exercising? Do you feel guilty about, I haven't gone to the doctor in a long time? I have a lot of people who just blow off doctor's appointments, their regular checkups. I don't need it. I'll go when I'm sick,
Right.
Are you doing the things for you because the other thing is, when couples come in and one person is really good about their physical health and the other person is not, and I'm not saying like the one person is like a marathon runner. No, I'm just saying the other person is keeping up with appointments. They're not eating junk food, and the other person isn't. It's almost like a lot of the people will say to me, it feels like it's disrespectful to me because that's my partner, and they don't think high enough of themselves and of me to be taking care of themselves. Whether it's drinking, anything that you're doing. Again, you have to be honest with yourself and have courage. The worst thing that we can do is not ask for help when we need it. Okay.
Right.
When you come to me or any other therapist, we're not going to judge you. I always tell people, I'm not my sister who's the judge. Okay. Yeah. I'm not the principal. You can come in and tell me anything, and trust me, I've heard everything. So you're not going to shock me. Okay. And anybody can have any kind of little thing that they deal with. I always use a story about when I go through anxieties. My sister, who's the judge and sees criminals every day. My sister has a fear of spiders, little tiny spiders. She's a judge. I'm like, how is this possible? And she says, I just am.
That's it.
So it's like, you got to be honest with yourself.
Right. No, yeah, no, absolutely. Everything that you said about this circle that you're talking about with the spiritual and the emotional, it totally makes sense with what today people have been dealing with. But I think that a lot of people forget to say they need help. I think that's one of the biggest things. Or learn how to say no sometimes. And I know I have people, you're shaking your head, and a number of people always say, yes, I know I need to say no, or I need to delegate, whatever it may be. We think that we could do it all. We're super people, and we're not. Sometimes we just need to chip it away, give it to somebody else. They can do it. Ask for help. And that's the way that people just need to do that. And that might help, like you said, the anxiety and the physical and everything else that you're talking about. So you definitely tied it in with everything like that together. And I didn't even ask you. So now I know Greek background because we grew up together in the Hellenic heritage. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your work and your family, if you don't mind, just so people get a little idea of your background.
Okay, so I'm a licensed mental health counselor. Mm-hmm. I started my career doing trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, things like that. I've also done outpatient intensive, which means people who have schizophrenia, mm-hmm. bipolar, borderline disorder. I've done residential before, which is where the teenagers would stay in there and they would do therapy with me. I have Baker acted, which, sending people to an institution because they were suicidal and homicidal. I've Baker acted for homicidal as well, for their own good. I always tell them it's for their own good. Right. And I've been doing this for a number of years. I also speak on, there's a local talk show that I'm on, Bloom, mm-hmm. every couple months. I'm sure you've seen it, I know. Mm-hmm. And I have 3 children. They're all teenagers. So when I talk about things, trust me, I know. I'm a parent. I know how hard they are. Okay? Uh-huh. And I have a wonderful husband. I'm also involved with many things in my church. Mm-hmm. I am a dance director. I've been a dance director for almost 30 years. I am the Goya advisor. I am the Vacation Bible School director. I am the Christmas pageant co-director. I do a lot.
You do a lot. I do a lot. Multiple hats. So you absolutely know what you're practicing, what you're preaching, basically. So you are dealing with the anxiety and balancing, and that's what I think people need to understand. You can, but you don't have to. If you can't, you can just slow down, like you said, pick and choose, so you don't have that heaviness on top of you. And I think that's one of the best things that people need to understand, is that they don't have to do everything. And I think
setting limits is amazing, because it is a form, we call it a form of self-care. Mm-hmm. Because when you set limits with people, mm-hmm. then you don't have the anxiety of, oh my gosh, I have to do it. You don't have, especially moms. I have a lot of new moms who come in and they're like, I'm supposed to do everything. I'm supposed to, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're supposed to do as much as you can and ask for help.
Right.
It's for us as Greek people, we always go and we help. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes things happen and we can't help. Mm-hmm. So we need to be able to say, you know what, I need to deal with my issues. I need to deal with my family before I add another thing on my plate, or I go do something that I know is going to make me feel like it's a burden.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to say no. Like if you have adult children and they want to move back in, or you have to care for your aging parents. Sometimes it's hard to say no, but I always tell people, I'm like, okay, let's put some boundaries on it. Do you have to, let's really, really be able to get better at seeing what is really a fire drill and what's not. Mm. Because on both sides of the spectrum, our young kids and our elderly parents, and this is not a joke, whether your young kid can't find something that they need for school, or your elderly parent can't work the remote on the TV. Mm-hmm. Both of them, to them, are the most important things right then and there. And you have to drop everything to go.
Yeah. I totally understand that. Yes. I understand in certain aspects exactly what you're saying. And I know other people, hopefully, that are seeing this are agreeing or shaking their heads and saying, yes. And those for individuals that are online and watching this, you can go ahead and send us a chat. We're here for a few more minutes. We'd love to try to get that information over to Sula. Please go ahead and do that. But Sula, is there more about this? I know you said occupational, the social. The social, I think, deals with a lot of individuals today because, like you said, social media. I am blessed that I didn't live in the social media age that these teenagers have today.
It's
Just,
one of the things that I ask how any
I,
client that comes in, I ask
how,
how much you on social media.
it,
How does it influence you? Because it is the one thing where everybody thinks, and I can say this to adults. Sometimes when I say it to teens, they're like, huh? If you picture a bell curve, okay, we all know what a bell curve looks like.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I want you to think of the days that people have as a bell curve. You have one or two good days they're at the front of the bell curve. You have one or two bad days. Most everybody else falls in the middle of the curve as having just a kind of day.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing spectacular happens.
Right, right.
Okay? But you would think that all these people that are posting, they're having the best time of their life every single day. And I'm here to tell you, because I'm a therapist, and these people come to me, they're not. Trust me, they're not.
Right. And
we all have to remember that what we see is just what people want us to see. It's almost like their advertisement of their life. Like, exactly. You know, if you were selling a vacation condo, look, this life is wonderful, you know, something like that. When in reality, we all have struggles. And sometimes social media is the reason why we don't want to admit that we're struggling, mm-hmm. and we don't want to ask for help, mm-hmm. because we think we're the only person. And I always tell people, trust me, you are not the only person in the world going through this.
No. And I think it came to fruition before the pandemic. I think a number of people know Robin Williams, who they mm-hmm. saw in so many things and thought he was the happiest and most, you know, go-lucky individual. And then when they found out what he did and how he passed, I think that plateaued a little bit with individuals. And then the pandemic came up, and then everybody's in their homes and they don't know what to do, and they can't get out, and social media and this and that, and that just elevated everything. So that's one of the reasons that, you know, we wanted to do this. I know it's a little bit later than the pandemic, but you know what? We're dealing with it now. I think it's going to be continuing on. Anxiety and social and emotional stress is going to be going. That never leaves. It's never out of date. It's never out of style, per se, if you want to say. It's just something that keeps going on and on and on. So, and I thank you for at least talking to everybody. And this will be up as a video. So on AHEPA Talk, we hope you all like, share, and subscribe. So, any chats there for our production team?
No. How to contact her.
What'd you say?
How to contact her.
And how do we contact you, Sula? Sorry, I have my production team talking to me over here.
You can contact me at sula@mcnultycw.com, or you can. I don't mind my cell phone number either. People text me all the time and tell me, hey, you know. Because especially with anxiety or something, I'm like, I'd rather walk you through it in the moment than you tell me sitting on my couch 3 weeks from now trying to describe it. So 727-453-2971.
Okay. And you can also, if you have my information, you can always reach me. I'll also give you the contact information as well. So, Sula, we really appreciate you coming today and sharing all this information with us today. Again, like, share, and subscribe to AHEPA Talk. I'd like to thank again Sula. I'd like to thank my production team that's sitting behind me, my husband. And thank you all for coming, and we appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sula.
Bye.
Bye. Am I done? Oh, sorry. We done?
Now we're done.